Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. Operation Fortune is directed by Guy Ritchie, who I believe to be a very talented director when he wants to be. Some of my favorite movies from him include both of the Sherlock Holmes movies, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and The Gentleman. So when I saw he was releasing this one, I knew I had to go check it out. The synopsis is as follows. Elite spy Orson Fortune must track down and stop the sale of a deadly new weapons technology wielded by billionaire arms broker Greg Simmons. Reluctantly teamed up with some of the world's best operatives, Fortune and his crew recruit Hollywood's biggest movie star, Danny Francesco, to help them on their globe-trotting mission to save the world. So without further ado, let's get into 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. The movie opens with a group of concealed operatives going in, killing a bunch of guards, and taking this top secret weapon that no one knows what it actually is. The government then hires a private contractor and his team to hunt down this weapon, figure out what it is, who the buyer is, and stop all of it. And while this movie has the fun Guy Ritchie storytelling style in it, where there's good story progression and very effective use of flashbacks, I will admit that this movie felt like it jumped into the middle of things too quickly. It seemed like there wasn't enough build-up, you kind of just got put right in the middle of everything, and then once you understood what was going on, there was a huge lull in the movie, and then by the time you get around one of the twists of what's going on, it just doesn't really seem to matter that much. So it just felt kind of dull. It was entertaining, but it wasn't anything amazing. So for me, plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. Operation Fortune is rated R. It has a moderate to high level of profanity. There's lots of action, lots of violence, lots of death. And like in a lot of Guy Ritchie films, there's a handful of sensual and sexual comments scattered throughout the film. And because of that, this movie's not family friendly. Family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. Ritchie is one of those directors that once he finds an actor or actress that he enjoys working with, he brings them into a lot of his film projects. I typically enjoy that dynamic, and I did to a certain extent in this film as well. But that being said, some of the acting performances weren't that great. I'll talk about the good and then I'll talk about the bad. 1, I liked the addition of Aubrey Plaza in this movie. I thought her performance was well done and added this funny element to the movie that made it a bit more enjoyable than it otherwise would have been. That being said, I didn't think a lot of the lines that she was given really helped her meet her potential in this film, because it honestly was pretty hit or miss. You were either kind of chuckling or it really wasn't that funny. But it's not because of her delivery, it's because of the lines she was given. And the other good part for me was Bugsy Malone. Bugsy is an actor that's been a part of several Guy Ritchie films, and I've always loved his performance in each one of them. He never plays the main character, but he's such a likable character in each of these films that I find myself wanting to see more of him in the future. Jason Statham plays Jason Statham. We see him returning from Wrath of Man, but unfortunately Statham is one of those actors that has the same role in almost every film. He gets typecast, and I understand why, but there was nothing that stood out to me about his performance in this movie. I personally love Hugh Grant, and I think he does an excellent job in The Gentleman and Man from U.N.C.L.E., but I have to be completely honest with you. Hugh Grant's performance in this movie seemed like he was just tired of being there. I don't know if it was because he's playing the same character he's played before, or because he's getting older, I'm not sure. He had some charming moments here or there, but he just seemed tired. Cary Elwes was in this movie, but his performance was super uninspired, and it just seemed like he didn't really want to be there either. And the acting performance that pulled this movie down even further was that of Josh Hartnett playing Danny Francesco. His role was a pivotal one in this movie that had a lot to do with the movie's plot, and I feel like as soon as he entered the story, the movie's pace just dropped. That's not purely his fault, as none of the lines he were given were very funny, and I just think that honestly his character was written pretty poorly. So because of all of that, I have to give acting and script a 50-50. 4 is character development. Honestly, the character development in this movie was pretty weak. I'd say probably the only person that gets any development at all, really, is Greg Simmons, but not that much. Pretty much everyone in this movie is reduced to their role in the plot that's going on and their capabilities as a field agent or an operative. There's not much story given to any of these characters, and with how you're thrown into the middle of everything very quickly at the beginning of the movie, it kind of suffers from character saturation. There's a lot of characters in this movie that you just don't really care about. And one of the biggest issues I had with it is that the villain in this movie is pretty weak. He's introduced with a twist in the film that really wasn't that interesting, and when you have a weakly written villain, it can tank your film. And unfortunately, that was the case here. So character development for me gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. The fight sequences in this movie were very entertaining, as usual. While I get tired of people getting typecast, I don't get tired of those typecast people kicking butt. So that was fun to watch. Although I have to say there were a couple weird creative choices in this movie. There was a really cheesy moment with Aubrey Plaza, and there were a couple different points when they threw subtitles up on the screen for a person that you could clearly understand what they were saying, but there were multiple times earlier in the film where Statham was talking so quickly that you honestly couldn't understand what he was saying because of his accent. So it just seemed like a very weird and out of place inclusion. But for the most part, the visuals and action sequences delivered exactly what you wanted them to. It was entertaining. So visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. Operation Fortune is an hour and 51 minutes long, which is usually a pretty decent length for an action film. But unfortunately in this case, it felt a little bit long, which I believe is very much in part to the pacing issues that came in the second act of the film. Paired with the lack of character development and a lot of lines that weren't that funny when they were supposed to be, it made this movie seem longer than it was. The movie wasn't terrible and it was a decent action flick, but I didn't find myself wanting to watch it again. So for me, rewatchability gets a 50-50. With all these areas considered, I have to give Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre a 6 out of 10. This movie had some fun storytelling moments, a couple decent acting performances, and really fun action sequences. But it suffered terribly from no character development, a lot of lines that weren't that funny, some pretty uninspired acting performances, and a plot that felt choppy, rushed, and very convenient and underwhelming at the end of the film. Which is a bummer because I really wanted to enjoy it more than I did. So with that being said, I wouldn't recommend going to watch Operation Fortune in movie theaters, but you might consider watching it when it comes out on streaming platforms. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Operation Fortune, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.